What's up, guys? Yeah, we're back with the intro. We got Walking Dead Season 2 recap. This season starts off with the team exiting the CDC after the end of last season where the CDC blew up, and they're just driving when a bunch of walkers show up. A bunch of walkers show up. So they get distracted as Sophia, Carol's daughter, runs away from the scene, and she ends up getting trapped in a ditch. So Rick finds her and is like, "Hey, stay here. We'll come find you." But then when Rick has to defeat these two walkers. But when he goes back, Sophia is missing, and that's kind of the deal with the first arc, that Sophia is missing. So Shane points a gun at Rick, and Dale sees this and I'm like, "Dude, what are you doing?" And he's like, "I don't know." So yeah. So there's this white deer. There's this deer that shows up, and someone shoots it, but ends up shooting Carl. No, not Carl. And yeah, no, not Carl. And Carl, yeah. So then they basically have to go to this farm owned by Herschel Green, and this basically becomes the residence. This basically becomes the character's residential spot for the rest of the season. This farm. So yeah. So Herschel's like, "Hey, we don't need the stuff that's going on. We need some stuff going on here, or Carl could die." So he's like, "Shane, Otis, you go out there and basically go to the school and basically get there." But then, as they're going there, they get surrounded by zombies. So what does Shane do? He decides to shoot Otis, sacrificing Otis to get what they need. R.I.P. Otis, the first casualty of season 2 is Otis. So Shane decides to cut off all his hair to basically embrace his new dark lifestyle, and I'll be calling this new version of Shane Dark Shane, because he's now the antagonist. So he's now Dark Shane. So Dark Shane's basically like, "Guys, I'll try to." He tries to compensate, Otis Otis told him to get going, and he died because Otis sacrificed himself. But we all know that's not really what happened. Shane shot Otis, and the zombies tore him apart. So everyone's pretty sad that Otis is dead. But we also have a new character, Maggie Green, who's basically Glenn's love interest. So Lori asked Shane to ask Glenn. My dad would have said, "You meant Glenn, but you said Shane." I had Shane on the brain. Gets Glenn to basically be like, "Hey, you want to buy this? You have to get her something from the pharmacy." So he's like, "Hey, you want to come on, Maggie?" And they basically start sleeping together. But then he buys the pregnancy stuff for Lori, but lies to Maggie saying he's buying condoms. So she basically like, "Dude, it's a zombie apocalypse. Do you want to sleep together?" And he's like, "Okay," and they sleep together. So yeah, so he gives the thing she needs to Lori, and Lori tests it, and Lori is pregnant. But now That's one of the mysteries of the show, is because now we gotta find out who is her baby. Is it Shane or is it Rick's? Because remember, she was married to Rick, but then when she thought Rick was dead, she was sleeping with Shane. But then when Rick came back, she started sleeping with Rick. Like, who does this baby belong to? I don't think we ever find out. So yeah, so Glenn goes down and decides to have another sleeping session with Maggie, and discovers a bunch of walkers in their barn. And she's basically like, yeah. He's like, why do you have a bunch of walkers in your barn? And she's like, why do you keep calling them that? They're not just walkers. They're people. They're her friends. They're her family. They're her stepbrother. They're her stepmom. They're people her and her dad care about. So, yeah. So basically, she's like, hey, you can't tell anyone. But he decides to tell Dale, which then Dale tells someone else. And it's just... And then Maggie gets mad because she's like, dude, I told you not to tell anyone. And then by on the fact, Lori tells Glenn to keep the baby a secret from Rick. And then that's another secret he's kept from her. And then they're at the pharmacy and gets her what she needs. And then Maggie blows up at her, basically saying, hey, if you want to go to the pharmacy, go yourself. Don't get us to do it for you. So yeah, so she's like, hey, I should have never told you to do that. But then Glenn is like, guys, there are zombies in the barn, and Shane is not okay with this. So he just starts. So Herschel's like, Rick, can you come with him? And he's like, yeah, sure. Why? I'm gonna show you how to catch walkers instead of murdering them. So they catch walkers, but Dark Shane does not have any of this. So he's like, dude, you really just brought in some walkers in front of your kids? Well, Sophia is missing. Okay, so speaking of Sophia, Daryl is still on the hunt. My boy Daryl is still on the hunt for Sophia, and he finds her, and then he dreamizes his brother, basically talking down to him. But then he's able to he dreams of his brother basically talking down to him. So anyway, yeah, so real quick, so Shane just starts letting the walkers out. They start saying no, don't do it, and Shane basically just murders every one of them until one of the walkers comes out. It's Sophia. My mind blown. Yes, Sophia was a walker the entire time. She was kept in the barn by Otis with the other walkers or family members, and now Rick has to unfortunately shoot her in the head. This would probably be up to like 100 deaths by this point. 101. Yeah, there's a lot of deaths in this season. So yeah, there's a lot of deaths. I can't say it right. Death. There's a lot of death in this season. So yeah. So meanwhile, there's a thing going on between Andrea and Shane. Shane basically wants to teach Andrea how to use a gun. Carl wants to know how to use a gun to defend himself, and Dark Shane wants to sleep with Andrea. Yeah, and Carol is basically now all distraught, basically, now that her daughter is absolutely dead. She's now in all distraught. But Carol's like, dude, stop trying to bring all your baggage onto me. So So yeah, so Dark Shane continues to bring on his, continues to like bring, like try to get flirt with Lori, and they're like, hey, don't flirt with my wife. So meanwhile, Herschel goes missing. So due to all the deaths of her family members, his daughter Beth basically goes into a shock coma and basically doesn't come out of it. So, but Herschel basically leaves, and then they meet these two guys who are like, hey, why don't we just, it's all cool until they're like, hey, why don't we come onto your farm? We can come onto your farm. Rick's like, no. So he tries to pull his gun, but then Rick shoots them, and that's when more of their guys come and starts into an all-star brawl. But then, get it? Rick, they basically leave one of their guys named Randall behind. And this is where the final arc comes into play. Yeah. Final arc comes into play. So they leave one of their guys, Randall, behind, and they have to, Herschel's like, leave him, Rick. We have to leave this guy behind. But Rick's like, no, we are not leaving this guy behind. So, he's like, we are leaving this guy behind, Rick. And he's like, no, we're not. So they take him back to the farm. And they're like, Rick, did you just really bring some random stranger into... So Shane and Rick get into a big fight. Lori's like, hey, Rick, you can't trust Shane. You can't trust Shane. He's not all that trustworthy. You know, he wants to get rid of you, and he thinks the baby's his, but it's not, it's yours. And I keep telling him it's yours, but he really wants to be with me. So Rick's like, dude, take, I know that you and my wife had something in the past, but please stop trying to hit on my wife. So, and he's like, okay. But then they take that guy out. And that dude Dark Shane just wants to shoot this guy. But Rick says, no, we don't shoot people. And he's like, they're about to leave until he says he knows Maggie. And he's like, and Dark Shane keeps saying, dude, if this guy knows Maggie, that means he knows the farm. If he knows Maggie, that means he knows the farm. And so, yeah. But then he's like, hey, we never talked or anything, but we saw each other. We never say anything to each other. But then Rick's like, hey, if you want to shoot, he's like, hey, I'll just shoot him. But then Rick's like, no, we don't shoot people, Dark Shane. So, yeah, they get into a big fight. Zombies attack. Shane gets knocked out. They save the kid. Meanwhile, back at the farm, Maggie's sister Beth just wants to kill herself. She just wants to die. And for some reason, Angela, in the worst Angela moment ever, is really encouraging this woman to die. She really forgot that she had a sister. So she really, the writers forgot Angela had a sister named Amy. So Beth is like, hey, Maggie, why don't you just kill yourself with her, and then we can both be dead together. Terrible message. This episode had a terrible message with Andrea and her whole, encouraging, and she's like, and they for some reason let Andrea watch this girl, and she's like, hey, if you really want the pain to end, walk through the door. But if you don't, then stay alive. Worst message ever. So, by chance, Beth wants to live. Beth wants to live. She only slipped like one of her hands, proving that she wants to live. And they get her medical attention. Maggie comes all up on Adria saying, well, what did you say to her? I just said if she wanted to choose to live, and she chose to live, and she's like, stay away from my sister. And then Lori's like, I just agree with Andrea. Terrible message. So, terrible messaging. So, yeah. So then in another episode 11, we see Dale. So, yeah. So Rick is like, so Carl steals when Carl disrespects Carol. Carol's like, hey, we'll see Sophia one day when we're all in heaven. Sophia's like, and Carl's like, ha ha ha, you really think heaven's real? If you think heaven's real, Carol, then you're an idiot. And then Rick's like, hey, you're gonna apologize to Carol right now. And he's like, hey, so he decides to shoot a gun at a zombie, but that zombie ends up eating a cow, which eventually rips Dale out, and so Dale's just walking on his midnight stroll when he sees a zombie and the zombie attacks Dale, and the gang hears him, and he rips him open, and Dale dies. All because the actor didn't want to be on the show anymore because his favorite producer was fired. That's the whole reason why Dale's dead. So now Carl is blaming himself because if he hadn't have antagonized that zombie or teased it, Dale would still be alive. So he's basically now moping and groping, basically being like, he's like, hey, why don't you just give it to Dale? And yeah, but then he's like, hey, he has said that he let go of the zombie that killed Dale. So then he's like, give the gun back to Daryl. But then Rick's like, hey son, if you don't want to be with Freddy anymore, here's the gun that you stole. Keep it for yourself. Okay. So yeah. So they are finally getting let Randall go when Dark Shane, why did I say Sean? Shane lets him go, but then kills him. Dark Shane kills Randall. He lets him go, but then he kills him. So then he just drops. So then he basically just decides to attack himself, basically trying to say that Randall jumped him, but so it basically causes all the guys to basically run after Randall. But Dale starts being suspicious. He's like, a guy half his size really jumped you. So yeah, but then they see Randall as a zombie. But then they're like, hey, he has no bite marks. So, but Daryl still killed. Daryl either kills him or he's alive and zombified. I have no idea. But then Dark Shane takes Rick out to a mill, planning to kill Rick. But because Dark Shane's like, Rick, you don't know how to care you don't know how to care for your kids, but I do. So when you're dead, I will care for your kids for you. I can do anything that you can do. But then, so Shane's about to shoot Rick, but then Rick stabs Shane, killing him. But then Shane reanimates as a zombie without being any bitten until being shot by Carl. But that shot awakens a horde of zombies. That awakens a horde of zombies. So those zombies attack the farm. As Shane and as Rick and his son are running, and Lori's basically just running everywhere, looking for Carl. Sorry, I'm getting confused. Looking for Carl. So Carl decides to burn the barn down, basically burn down, and And Herschel's like, hey, he'd rather die on his farm, protecting his farm, than die by a zombie. So, yeah. But then they're able to drive off with Herschel. And they're like, hey, T-Dog's like, hey, we should go back and look for Rick and Carl. But T-Dog's like, no, I don't care. I don't care about them. I'm just going to go because this is zombie apocalypse. I know that's not how the actual scene went, but I just gotta say, that's terrible on T-Dog's part. T-Dog is kind of a jerk, but still, you understand where he's coming from, but still, jerk. So, but then they end up coming together anyway. She's like, hey, where's Shane? And he's like, he's dead. And he's like, where's Andrea? And she's like, she's rather dead or alive. And he's like, hey, what happened to Jimmy and Patricia? Yeah, he's like, I'm sorry guys, but Patricia was eaten by a zombie, and Rick accidentally let Jimmy get eaten by a zombie too. So both of them are dead. They're on the death toll counter, along with Shane. So, yeah. It's like 105 deaths so far. So Andrea's just running from some zombies until some random person in a cloak with a sword kills one of the zombies. Who is this one? Who is this person? I guess that will be a season 3 answer. Because now we gotta find out who this woman is, who this person is, and why they would save Andrea of all people. So anyway, Rick finally reveals that what Janet told him back in the end of last season, that everyone is infected. That's why when you die, you turn into a zombie, because you've already been infected. You've already been infected without being bit. So when Rick killed Shane, and when Shane killed Randall, that means everyone in the group, if they die, they'll turn into a zombie anyway. So everyone just immediately distrusts Rick now. Like, my dad just said that he disliked this from the show, that everyone just immediately distrusts Rick. Like, he saved your lives like so many times, and he keeps one secret from you, and you're immediately like, yeah, I don't trust Rick. Then Rick's like, to crap with you people. I just killed my best friend. And Shane and Carl's basically sad because he did kill Shane, but he had no idea that Rick killed him before. So he just breaks down in tears, and he's like, to crap with you all. If you want to go out there, and you want to go out there by yourself, go ahead. But if you want to stick with me, stick with me, because I'm giving no crap for nobody anymore. You go, Rick. And then they get a final shot as where Rick and the gang could possibly go, and that's where season 2 comes to an end. Okay. This next season is a current trend of seasons that are going to be a longer show with 16 episodes. So season 1 had 6 episodes, season 2 had 13, and season 3 will have 16. So this is season 2. And what did I think about it? It was okay. Shane was a good antagonist, but they could have built him up. Last episode, they could have built his death up to this episode, Rick kills him here. That would be a better finale, but they kill him off in the last episode. It just doesn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense that they killed him off. But anyway, that's it for this video. And I'll see you next time for more other recaps I do. Stay recap happy, and I'll see you next time.